Yeah, there was badges and there was the presentation of the badges there as well, which there's a whole other level of other people seeing you receive your badge.
And Tracy and Lorraine, how's your badge game?
Our badge game is pretty strong here too, to be fair.
The cream of the digital crop.
Welcome to Hello World, a podcast for educators interested in computing and digital making. I'm James Robinson, a content creator for the Raspberry Pi Foundation, specialising in computing pedagogy.
And I'm Sway Grantham. I'm also involved in content creation at the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and my passion is working for those children under 11 to show everyone else the amazing things that age group can achieve. If you want to support our show, then subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star review.
So today we're asking, how can student digital leaders help raise the profile of computing in our schools? How do school staff recruit, support and make use of digital leaders, both in computing lessons but also around the school? What makes a good digital leader, and how do we go about introducing digital leaders into our school settings? These are all the questions that we'd aim to answer today. Sway, I'm going to start with your thoughts, as I know that you've run a digital leaders program in the past. For you, what are digital leaders in your experience, and what's the benefit of a program like this?
So I basically set up digital leader programs in every school that I worked in for children at the top end of the school. So we're talking about 10, 11-year-olds. And basically they did whatever I needed them to do, which is very generic, but it was so useful. So this could be anything from checking equipment was charged, getting it set up in classrooms so that teachers that were less confident with getting out specific pieces of equipment had it set up and ready for their lessons. They would do things like trial new apps or new piece of hardware and report back on their experiences and what age groups they thought they were most appropriate for. So they're kind of the logistical things. Beyond that, I had them run clubs for some of the younger children. So I would be present, obviously, an adult to make sure there's no rioting, not that there ever was. But they would be running the clubs. They would plan the sessions. They would be doing, showing them exactly what they needed to do and almost training my next set of digital leaders for when they came up through the school. They were also great to use around online safety, like keeping me updated on what was cool at the moment, what was trending in terms of popular videos on YouTube or other platforms, or what games were popular, so that I could be aware of what they were about, and that could help me to manage any risks or outcomes that might occur. And I think overall, I would just say they freed up my time so that I could concentrate on things to raise the profile of computing in other ways and allow, teacher time is so valuable and it's so hard to come by, that I used them to be extra pairs of hands and feet on the ground to keep computing as a really important part of the schools I was working in.
So you had this little posse or troop. Did you give them a name? Were they like Sway's, I don't know, squad or something like that? I don't know. Did they have a little? I just imagine this little group of primary children following you around doing your job.
I mean, unofficially, I refer to them as my minions, but I didn't tell them that. They were just the digital leaders, but they were fabulous. Yeah.
And you've talked a little bit there about how they, this is sort of the benefit to you, I suppose, like how they helped you kind of do things around the school. Was there a benefit, do you think, or an intrinsic benefit for them?
Oh, there was it worked out so well for everyone. I would say, for me, it freed up some of my time, but it also gave me that insight from a learner's perspective, that pupil voice that's so important. For them, they had all sorts of opportunities. Being able to run a club, it was very much a badge of honor that they were trusted to have this expensive equipment. They came to events with me and spoke at conferences. They had adults come up to them and say how amazed they were with what they could achieve, which for them was so inspiring and motivating. And even just for the school in general, the school often showcased what our children were able to achieve based on our digital leaders. If visitors came to the school, then the digital leaders might come in and set up the projector for them or get the slides ready for a presentation. And it really just showed off how happy and confident the children were at using technology in the school and their ability to showcase that to anyone that came to visit.
That's great. It's really good to hear a primary experience. I think until we kind of set this conversation up, I think my preconception was that digital leaders was a very kind of primary school thing. But actually, we're going to talk today to two secondary teachers who've established digital leaders in their classrooms. So to help us understand the impact that digital leaders can have, we're joined today by two educators who are currently running digital leader programs in their school. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Lorraine Hall from St Matthew's Academy in Ayrshire, Scotland, where she leads the school's digital learning and teaching strategy. Welcome, Lorraine. It's great to have you with us. Could you tell us a little bit about your digital leaders at St Matthew's Academy?
Thanks, James. So our digital leaders are currently a group of S6 pupils. So those are pupils between the ages of sort of 16 and 18, and they take on the responsibility for part of our digital strategy. So we started using digital leaders in 2020, so our programme is still in the early stages. Obviously last year we didn't get the opportunity to see the programme through due to school closures. However, this year we've made a kind of run at it and we've had a better opportunity to evaluate the impact that they're having. We identified online safety as an area within our digital strategy that our S6 pupils could lead on. And they've been working on creating resources for pupils in first year, so those that have just transitioned up from primary school, and have talked about, the risks and challenges associated with using different online platforms and social media, and how they can seek support if that's required. So that's the main sort of project that they are working on at the moment. One of our digital leaders is undertaking a level 6 qualification, which is a leadership award through the Scottish Qualifications Authority, and she is using that as her leadership project. So she's created the resource and has delivered it, shared that with the group of digital leaders so that they can deliver that to other classes too. That happened during our Digital Skills Week in December, which we run internally, and one of the focuses during that week is online safety, so that fit in quite nicely and has given those pupils the opportunity to lead a project and help support younger pupils in the school with that. They've also been supporting first year pupils in enterprise classes, and those enterprise classes pupils are learning how to use different Microsoft applications, so they're in there to support them with using Teams and Class Notebook and things like that, because that's what we're using as a way of delivering online learning. Even now that we're back full time, we're still continuing the use of that. So that's given them, again, another opportunity to improve their own digital skills and knowledge relating to Microsoft applications, but also to support first year pupils in using these so that they're able to engage with digital learning. Those first year pupils are also working on the Bronze Award through IDEA. So the 6-year digital leaders in those classes have been kind of overseeing that work that they've been doing as well.
Also joining us is Tracy Mutter, a digital learning and computer science teacher from Falkirk High School. Great to have you joining us, Tracy. Similar to Lorraine, you work with older students. What has been your experience of digital leaders in your school?
Thanks, Wei. So our digital leaders are quite different in that we would normally have all of our pupils able to be digital leaders. So that would be from S1 to S6, so 11 to 18-year-olds. They would all have the chance to be a digital leader rather than only focusing either at the bottom end or the top end of the school. That was until the pandemic, and because I'm not allowed to mix bubbles, I had to pick one or the other groups. Given that senior pupils would be focusing on exams, I decided to stick with the junior group. So I currently have a group of S1, S2 and S3 pupils, so kind of 11 to 13-year-olds who are our school digital leaders at the moment. We have just gone to a one-to-one device provision with iPads, so they are heavily involved in that, in producing training materials, both for pupils but also for staff. They also help out with staff training. So I will train the digital leaders and then they will come in and support when I'm delivering training to staff. We have trained head teachers across our authority in using OneDrive to collaborate on documents and things like that. And the digital leaders were the ones who actually led that training session. But obviously I was just there to some moral support for them. We also work with our associated primary schools. So that will be primary schools where the children from that school will transition to ours. So we work with the digital leaders in that setting as well. In our own school, it does give the digital leaders leadership kind of ability and a chance to do that. We also work towards the IDEA award. Our digital leaders work towards that as well. And lots of ours have actually gained their silver award already. Lots of them will do that in their own time as well as during digital leader time. We are also working towards our Digital Schools Award, which is a Scottish and an Irish award, I think, for schools. In class time, they are working with members of staff. So a member of staff, if they are not very confident, they can use one of the digital leaders to kind of support them with that. or if there's other children in classes who are not very sure how to do something, then our digital leaders can support them with that.
That sounds like a really, I mean, what we've heard there from Sway and from Lorraine and Tracy are three quite different experiences of digital leaders. But I think actually what really comes through in every case is actually that this is not just a title that we give some students. It is actually really about leadership. And whilst that might look different in different schools and at different phases and with schools with different priorities, I think we are trying to give these students ownership and leadership and the ability to have an impact on what the school is doing in this space. So I think that's really interesting. I'm really curious as well about how you select digital leaders. And I think, how do you find those students? Is it anybody can just say, yeah, I'll do that? Or is there a process? How many digital leaders do you have in your school? I'm interested in anyone's perspectives really on how do you go about finding those students who you want to sort of give this opportunity to. And
so in the past, when we piloted this in 2020, pupils who had shown significant skills in computing were approached and asked if they would be keen to take on the role to support younger pupils in the school. At that stage, our aim for the digital leaders was to be like a sort of help desk type thing, where pupils further down the school, if they needed access to a device or, to get them logged into Microsoft Teams and things like that, they could make an appointment with one of the digital leaders and they would go through all that with them so that they were able to engage with, the kind of blended learning approach. This year, however, put out the option to everyone in S6 if they wanted to volunteer to become a digital leader, but also looking at some S6 pupils who are keen to get involved with wellbeing as well. So we have a pupil wellbeing ambassador programme. So quite a few of the digital leaders on the group are also wellbeing ambassadors. So it's worked out quite well that they're interested in digital learning, but also that sort of wellbeing aspect has been really helpful in terms of delivering on the online safety resources that they've been discussing with pupils further down the school. So it's been good to have a mixture of the digital learning side of things, but also taking into account pupils maybe feeling if they're online and they're seeing different things or they're unsure of material they've maybe come across or whatever. So it gives that they're able to, have that discussion with them as to what they can do and who they can speak to if they need to report anything and things like that. So that was another factor in our working this year.
Oh, it's really interesting to hear the different approaches to recruiting and the open to everyone. I think is a great approach. When I have my digital leaders, one of the things I got to after running the program for a few years was that they interviewed the next generation. So we had these 10 or 11-year-olds interviewing the 9-year-olds that were coming up. Children are ruthless is what I will say. If I ever had an interview that strict, I think, oh, wow. But it was a really, again, that impact, and it's so empowering for them. I was thinking of, for Tracy, you've achieved a lot with your digital leaders, all those things that you were talking about. How did you get started with them? Right in the beginning, if you've not already got digital leaders in your school, how do you get from kind of nothing to where you are now? How did you get started?
I had obviously wanted to introduce digital leaders, and I had to put in a proposal to our senior leadership team as to what I wanted them to do, what I thought we could gain as a school, and what I thought the pupils would gain out of it. The first time that we recruited digital leaders, we had an online application, which was in Microsoft Forms. The pupils applied to be digital leaders and were then interviewed by myself. And we had 16 digital leaders the first year that we went for it. Since then, things have kind of changed, and we don't do the kind of formal application and interview, because we kind of have a club sphere where the children will all come down to the hall and they'll circulate the hall and see all the clubs that are going. And they sign up at that point. But I quite often get, because we work with some of the digital leaders from our primary schools, some of them will come at the very beginning of the year in August and ask to be a digital leader because they've already worked with us. We do have an authority-wide digital leaders platform in Microsoft Teams, and we do authority-wide training. So my digital leaders will train alongside the primary ones. So again, it's another way to recruit your digital leaders from primary school, because you've seen kids who were already digital leaders, so you kind of get to know them that way. But in everybody has the opportunity to sign up and be digital leaders. we normally, when I had digital leaders right through my school, our senior pupils became digital leader prefects. So their duty to the school was not, on campus as such and patrolling or doing whatever. Theirs was to digital learning within the school. So they would come and do like kind of parents' evenings and information evenings and kind of showcase what the digital leaders did and also what happened in computing, because I tend to find that my senior digital leaders also take computing science.
And I guess a similar question to you, Lorraine. Obviously, you're in a slightly earlier kind of point in your journey with digital leaders, but how have you gotten started and what's kind of next? What's next on your roadmap?
So in 2019, when I started taking the lead on our digital learning and teaching strategy, similarly to Tracy, I kind of looked at where we were as a school and what we had to do to move forward on a digital journey. And I worked with my head teacher and my Link deputy head teacher, and we looked at how we could move our strategy forward so that we could improve the provision of digital learning and teaching across the school and ensure that digital technology was a central consideration to learning and teaching within all curricular areas. So we identified within our strategy where we thought pupils would be able to lead a project. And as I say, the first year we kind of piloted the programme, we looked at, the help desk type situation, whereas this year we've looked a bit more at kind of wellbeing online and online safety. We were also working towards the Digital Schools Award, so we achieved that at the beginning of last year. And then just before Christmas, we achieved the Special Recognition Award for Cyber Resilience and Internet Safety. So our digital leaders had a significant impact on us achieving those awards from the work that they did, and they were also involved in our validation meeting that we had, where we shared the work that we've been doing across the two years. Going forward, we are looking to work on our self-evaluation for the Digital Wellbeing Award that Digital Schools Scotland is offering. And again, we'll be continuing to work on the online safety aspect of digital learning, and the digital leaders will continue to be heavily involved in that. We're hoping to create a more robust version of the help desk where pupils are able to make more formal appointments with digital leaders. If we're kind of hoping to set up QR codes on a display board so they can scan that, make an appointment, and then when the digital leaders have a non-contact period, they're able to go and speak to that pupil and deal with their concerns, or if there are any issues that they're having using any of the Microsoft applications that we require for them to engage with their digital learning.
And I have a very serious question for everybody here. If I was a student, and one of the things that I think I've seen when we've talked about this on Twitter is, how do we recognise those students around the school? Importantly, is there a badge associated with this role, and how important is that in terms of recruiting and promoting digital leaders? Sway, did you have badges in your school for your digital leaders?
We didn't have badges because there are badges for so many other things that it got quite common, but they were just known by status, and that was sufficient. Right. They were seen in assemblies, and they were allowed out of class sometimes to meet visitors, and that definitely made you the cream of the digital crop.
And Tracy and Lorraine, how's your badge game?
We have enamel pin badges that our digital leaders get, but they don't get them right away when they sign up. They actually have to sign up and actually turn up and do some stuff rather than just instantly get the badge. So we're quite ruthless that way, in that they actually have to be a digital leader in order to earn the badge. But yeah, they are quite popular, the badges, and you do get quite a few questions of this, when do I get the badge? They do get the recognition, as we had said, about getting out of school to go and do training or to go and work in a primary school and those kind of things. So other children do see that they are getting a privilege that they don't maybe have. But I think the enamel badge is the one that's the winner.
And Lorraine, would I have to work for a badge if I was at your school, or do I just get one when I sign up? Are you going to make me work for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our badge game is pretty strong here too, to be fair. So the first year we didn't have any badges just because, we were in and out of the building and things like that, and we never kind of got round to getting those. But this year, that was one of the conditions that the digital leaders were a part of that group. As long as they were getting a badge, that they were happy to help. So yeah, we do have badges now, but again, similarly to Tracy, they need to be in those enterprise classes and supporting the S1 pupils before they're given that. And then their photo was put on Twitter when they were awarded their badge. They were very excited about that. So yeah, definitely need to do a bit of graft before the badges get handed out, definitely.
Right, well, I think on that evidence, I'm going to go and make my own badge and just stick it to myself.
Yeah, there was badges and there was the presentation of the badges there as well, which there's a whole other level of other people seeing you receive your badge. Yeah, it'd be great to hear from either of you about what do you think the impact of has been of digital leaders, either on yourself and your own practice as a teacher, or on your school, or on the children themselves?
I think the biggest thing for me is, obviously it has an impact for me because I can get the digital leaders to support other staff and other pupils, and it takes some of that pressure off myself, because as principal teacher of digital learning, that I am the first call if anything kind of goes wrong. So it kind of puts that little buffer in, so staff will maybe ask a digital leader first before asking me. I think the biggest thing for the children is the leadership opportunity and getting to run things and organise things, try things out that they wouldn't normally have had. All of my digital leaders, I actually, not this year, but the previous years, I had actually looked at the background of all our digital leaders, and every single one of them had a record of needs recorded. So it is maybe children who wouldn't normally have had leadership opportunities that wanted to be and were digital leaders in my school, which I thought was very interesting, that they all had something recorded about them, so an additional need somewhere. And again, it's maybe not your traditional pupils that would get the leadership opportunities across the school that are getting this one. And it has helped pupils in terms of picking computing science and thinking about computing science as options or careers, that they can see that digital is not just somebody sitting behind a keyboard bashing away at it, but it is about solving problems and helping people, and they are quite interested in that.
So our decision, to introduce digital leaders was kind of underpinned by two of our school values, community and achievement, where we want pupils to have the opportunity to, use their gifts and abilities to support their peers, but also achieve new skills and new knowledge that helps to prepare them for life after school and the world of work. So at the moment, we've got about, on average, 94 to 95% of our pupils who move on to positive destinations. So want to continue to equip pupils with the skills that they need for the changing world, and digital's becoming the kind of main focus in education, further education in the world of work. So that was where we kind of stemmed this idea from. In terms of those pupils developing their leadership skills, they've taken on this project, they've gone into classes and delivered lessons, so they're improving their confidence and their resilience. They're in these classes delivering information, they're getting asked questions that they're maybe not quite prepared for or whatever, so they're kind of having to think on their feet, which again are skills that are essential for moving into the world of work. For the junior pupils, having that extra support in class has been excellent. So they've had, extra hands on there to ask questions to and be shown how to use Microsoft Teams and Class Notebook and really improve their skills and knowledge as well. So I would say those are, in terms of skills development, that's been the kind of major impact on the pupils so far. Obviously, as I say, we are in our early stages, so evaluating the impact sort of overall will come later in the year once they've kind of seen their programme through, and we'll be able to see exactly what sort of impact it's had on both the 6-year pupils and our junior pupils. Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing. It's really great to hear about the impact that a programme like this can have in school. I guess my final question to you both is, for our listeners who might not have digital leaders set up in their school, might be thinking about it, might have never heard of a digital leaders programme, what piece of advice would you give to anyone listening about how to go about setting up a digital leaders program in their school.
So just based on my experience so far of introducing digital leaders, I would say that the first thing to do is definitely find an area where you feel the digital leaders could take responsibility of a project and take that forward. I think it can be too tempting to try and do too much all at once and get them to lead this and deliver different things. And I think starting small and finding one focus for them so that you can get that in place and you can see it through again, so that you're able to evaluate it and make changes before you introduce something extra, so that, you know, they have a positive impact. I think if they were to take on too much all at once, they would be spinning too many plates and maybe wouldn't be able to deliver as effectively on each of those. So that for me would be the one kind of major piece of advice that I would give if someone else was wanting to introduce digital leaders to their school.
I think I would echo what Lorraine has just said. So certainly when I was thinking about setting up the digital leaders, I was thinking about what do I actually want them to do and what do I want to achieve with it. I'm much further down the line there with the digital leaders than Lorraine, because I've had them for a number of years. And I would definitely agree that start small, think about what you actually want them to do, what you want to achieve with it, and get that bit up and running. In terms of looking for the kids, either look to the kids who are in your computing department or kids that you know are really good with IT and just, you know, like helping, even if they don't have particularly great digital skills. If they're like helping others, then the digital skills they can pick up, and just looking for people who are keen to get involved, and even maybe getting another staff member who is keen to get involved and support you with it as well. So at least then you have somebody to bounce ideas off or someone to help out, just an extra pair of hands as well. But yeah, start small and then you can grow it from there.
Yeah, some great advice there. I think I would just add that, like, you don't need to have all the answers when you start. Like, the children will guide you as to what they're interested in. You will sometimes have to scale them back because, you know, they'll have big plans and big vision. And again, starting small is obviously great advice. But I think just getting started with a couple of learners that are keen and with a small project you've got an idea for, they will help guide kind of what's next, so you don't have to have the full plan mapped out in your head already, which can seem like a really daunting task when you just don't have time to do that outside of your usual teaching routine.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your reflections and your comments today. It's been, I think, a really interesting and hopefully helpful conversation for our listeners.
We asked you, our listeners, to share some of your experiences of digital leaders in school. We heard from a number of different people on Twitter. Claire Booker was a great example, who's been running her program in her school for the last 10 years, and that's proved to be a very successful and impactful program.
Phil Hackett used digital leaders to support other pupils in the class. The digital leaders had badges that allowed their peers to know who was a good buddy to check their work with if they'd been stuck for a while after trying to solve their own problems. The impact of this was that both learners and teachers would recommend people to become digital leaders, and they would go above and beyond in their lessons to showcase the skills that they were developing. It also appealed to a much wider variety of students than you would often see succeeding in computing lessons.
And to be honest, then the conversation really kind of turned into a conversation about badges and people sharing their beautiful enamel and sort of well-styled badges, which was great to see. If you have a question for us or a comment about our discussion today, then you can email via podcast@helloworld.cc, or you can tweet us at helloworld_edu. My thanks to Lorraine Hall and Tracy Mutter for sharing their expertise with us today. Next episode, we'll be thinking about the role of action research for professional development. So, Sway, what did we learn today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that to get started, think of some little tasks that the digital leaders could do that would just really support you and get going. The program will evolve over time and you can do lots more in the future, but the takeaway is just get started.
And for me, the takeaway was, if I wanted a badge, I'm going to have to go and make it myself, aren't I?
I think that's probably for the best.